Good morning, everyone. Chodesh Tov U'Varach, Chodesh Shvat. As the abbreviations go, Shenishma B'Sarot Tavot. Should be yeah, that should be this month. So we'll start. We normally do tefillah, but last week there was an earth-shattering development that I think needs some discussion. So very shortly, we'll say a few words. It's very unfortunate that people who we assume are well connected to Torah mitzvos and are righteous and are real from within and without are the educators for our children and educators of the generation, if they're on that level and height. And it turns out that we're always shaken again, over and over, again and again with these cases of people who are phony, who are not real, not sincere, not inside and out what we expect them to be. It's a very, very important Gaon of Vilna, who speaks about similar situation. Gives a categorically, gives a rule, and it's something that a few years ago I had seen it. I had seen this piece in the Gra, and it changed my whole perspective of of these type of issues, of situations. The Gra actually connects well to today and yesterday, rainy days like now. The Gra says that the Torah is compared to rain. Where is the Torah compared to rain? In the Torah itself. In Parshas Ha'azinu, it says, Ya'arov kamatar likhi, tizal katal imrati. The Torah is like matar, like rain, and like dew. What's the comparison? Why is the Torah comparing itself to rain? It says the Gra, and it's a very unusual, outstanding explanation and idea that he comes up with. He says, same as by rain, the rain doesn't decide or doesn't change what's going to grow from the ground. Whatever was planted, the seed that was planted in the ground, that's going to grow when there's rain, and it's not going to grow if there isn't rain. So if the seed of a flower is planted and then rain falls on it, then the flower grows out. And if a seed of thorns or weeds was planted and rain comes down on it, so thorns and weeds come out. Says the Gra, the exact same thing occurs by Torah. And that's very astonishing, that Torah is like rain. Whatever the person is inside, whatever type person he is or she is inside, the more Torah they learn, the more the inside comes out greater and greater. There's more, the person receives energy, spiritual energy to develop and bring out to the open what's inside him. If a person is righteous inside, from within, a good-natured person, it's an honest person, it's a well-meaning person, midot tavot, and then they learn Torah on top of that. So the Torah just makes them awesome, tremendous people, much greater than those who don't learn Torah, of the same nature. Because the seed that's planted inside, the Torah is like the rain pouring over it and making it greater and greater. But, and this is the big surprise, and it's the Gaon of Vilna. The Gaon of Vilna was the how scholar we've had in the past maybe 700 years. So he knew what he's talking about when he speaks of Torah and how Torah affects us. Says the Gra, but if a person is planted inside themselves, inside them, a bad personality, corrupt personality, negativeness. That's what's planted. That's the seeds inside. Or in other words, Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Hara is not controlled by the man or by the woman, by the person. And they learn Torah on top of that. So the Torah just strengthens, just makes it greater and greater, worse and worse. It doesn't fix. The Torah is like rain. Rain doesn't change what's going to grow. The seed in the ground is going to decide what's going to grow out of it. So, what's that? No. Chas v'chayila. Because the seed is dependent on us. That's what our free choice. That's where we as human beings come into the picture. We have free choice, free will to behave and to fix our ways and to make sure the Yetzer Tov is stronger, and we fight against the Yetzer Hara and we block it from appearing. But if by free will and free choice we let ourselves go with the Yetzer Hara, and on top of that we learn Torah, it's not a guarantee. Torah is not a guarantee that you're going to be a good person. Derech Eretz kadma la Torah. It says again the Mishnah itself in Pirkei Avos. Derech Eretz kadma la Torah. If you're a distorted human being, the Torah just will make you worse. And this is also the story of several so-called rabbis who learned a lot of Torah in their life. No one's taking that away from them. They learned a lot of Torah. It was based on a corrupt personality of Yetzer Hara, which was much stronger in them than the Yetzer Tov. They chose to let themselves go. And then we hear the most mean and most terrible actions that are done by so-called rabbis, because that's the effect that Torah has, to strengthen and to make huge and grow all that's inside you. So, yeah. Uh-huh. Right. I agree. It's a guidebook for life. It's a guidebook for. Oh, I think it's a guidebook for those who wish to receive the guidelines to their life. But if they're they have this differentiation in them. It's intellectual. The Torah is intellectual. Exactly. It's a disconnect. Exactly. Their inner personality features is one thing, and the Torah is like an intellectual stimulation. They learn because maybe it's also learning Torah for the wrong reason, because they want to be famous, because they want to control. That's even worse. That's the Torah. The Gemara says, "Alomed Torah shelo lishma." So there's one Gemara that says, "Mitoch shelo lishma ba lishma." Even if you have wrong, if you're, what's that? Intentions, right? So still learn Torah because it may flip into the right direction, to correct intentions. But there's another Gemara that says, it was better that he wasn't born at all. How do we reconcile the two Gemaras? So the Tosfos explain that it depends what type of lo lishma it is. If it's not so severe that you're not using the Torah for bad reasons, for bad ways, you just want to make more money, let's say, or to have more kavod, then that's okay. It's not the best way to learn Torah, but that may flip into lishma in the end. But if you're learning Torah for the opposite reason, to be an evil person and to control others in order to get what you want, that's better you haven't been born. And we see that. We see that this happens over and over again, unfortunately, with different people, and different so-called rabbis. So Torah does teach us how to behave, but it depends if we're connected to what we're learning, or there's a disconnect. Inside us, we're one person, and outside, we're another. Like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type situation. I asked a psychiatrist yesterday if there's anything scientific about such a person who was the last one that was just discovered last week was a tremendous mechanech, an educator in the Haredi world. Everyone relied on his words and everyone read his books and his articles in the Yated Ne'eman newspaper, which is the #1 newspaper of the Litvish Haredi world. He had a column, a weekly column there called Hashkafa Teorah. He was the voice of the Haredi world, what the true Hashkafa is all about. So I asked a psychiatrist yesterday if this is something that's he was mentally ill. He was sick. He was definitely sick, no question. But can he categorize it as a specific syndrome? He said, no. If it's an evil person, it's not something like schizophrenic, which is you're two different human beings. At the same time, you live two different lives. It's not that, because he knows exactly who he is every moment, every second. He's just a bad man. That has nothing to do with psychiatrical syndromes. It's just an evil person. So it's very scary. It's very scary. That's why it's hard to rely on anyone. You have to be careful with wherever you are and whatever you're doing, and warn your children and grandchildren not to rely on anyone and not to go off with anyone. And we hope the Chilul Hashem, that's one of the main factors here, the Chilul Hashem that this caused, we'll be able to fix it by growing with the good seed, with the good seeds inside us, and that becoming the message of Torah followers, people who absorb the Torah in them and don't have this disconnect. They're connected to what they're learning, and they're growing in the right direction. That's what we need to be. Just need to be. The way to fix this is to be better people and show that the Torah does create tremendous good as long as there's a good basis to build on. And one last point, which I think is even more, I'm not sure more, but almost equally disappointing about this whole story. And that is the reaction of many rabbis, mainly in the Haredi world, some even in somewhat the Dati-Leumi world. The reactions have been so watered down, to say the least, diluted for what should have been against this phenomena. And it turns out that they're trying to protect him. It's like they're giving protection for who he was. Yeah, that's part of it. But even once he's dead, how many others? Right, not at all. Not at all. And that's what they say. They say, Avad Tzaddik Min Haaretz. What's that? So it's not about him so much. It's about the phenomena. It's the message you give out to the world. Because if there's that person, so who knows how many others there are?
No, I don't understand the reaction. Not because I don't understand the reaction. I understand like it's pointed maybe in the Haredi reaction, but then you also have Shmuel Eliyahu's very strong reaction.
Right.
But then Rabbi Ner and Rav singing.
Right. That's why I said that even in our camp, there are those who have watered it down.
These are the people who I want to listen to, but they're saying opposite things.
I know. So I can't understand them either. It's not, doesn't matter if your kippah is a kippah sruga or your black kippah. If the reaction is of such that there was lashon hara and they poured his blood by humiliating him in public, all that, just can't understand. How can that be said about a person who ruined at least 22 people's lives? At least 20 people who are willing to come forward and speak about it. Who knows how many more? and the lives of those who respected him and considered him as their educator and leader, and now ruined their lives as well, even though not to the effect of personal physical touch, but in some way. I really don't know. No idea. The only thing I can say about some of them, not most of them not, but some of them, that they're so old, in the Haredi world, they're so old that I'm definitely sure they don't know the story exactly. They're told something by their mishamshim, by their small people around them, and that's how they react to that. They don't react to the truth of the matter. They can say that someone spoke Lashon Hara about this tzaddik, Chaim Wilder, and look what happened. He committed suicide. He goes, wow, that's terrible. You're not allowed to speak Lashon Hara. You're going to make it up. You make up a story that's the exact opposite of reality. And they react to that. They don't read newspapers. They don't listen to radio. They don't see the internet or anything. It all depends what they're fed. And a person like Rabbi Gershon Edelstein, which I very, very highly respect, he came out with amazing Bein Adam Lachavero insights that even the Tilumi world rabbis wouldn't have said, of how to accept and embrace kids who have gone off the derech. There's a video of like 10 minutes, which is just unbelievable. I watch every once in a while. I watch it again just to strengthen. What's that? Yeah, so I'm saying it's extreme. Rav Gershon Edelstein is the #1 rabbi today in the Haredi world, together with Rav Chaim Kanievsky, the top. Rav Steinman. Rav Steinman, he took over. He's 98 now. Rav Gershon Edelstein is 98 years old. Yeah, it's just the beginning of a new career. He just started a new career. Yeah, so I can't make sense out of it. I don't know. Yeah, definitely in this case, no question. And more rabbis are coming out now in that direction. David Levine sent me an article. So harsh. It's a rabbi in I can tell you exactly which rabbi. Just for 1 second. I'll tell you the name of the rabbi. They've given his books to read, right, freely.
You know, it's interesting also that in America, everybody's coming out very strong. They had a book burning in America.
Oh, wow.
But in America,
that's exaggerated. That's exaggerated.
But in America, no, but in America,
right.
In America, all are everyone's coming out.
Yeah, right. I think they're much more sensitive. Here, this is it. There's an article here of a Haredi rabbi that in America, by the name of it's a long article written by Rav Yitzchak Eisenman. Know the name?
Yeah.
He's in Avas Israel in Passaic, New Jersey. Rav Yitzchak Eisenman. You know the name? He wrote an article that's unbelievable. He begins the article by saying CW, not capital letters, abbreviations of Chaim Wilder, not capital letters, Yimach Shemo. That's how he begins the article. Ad kedei kach. And he writes a whole article why he thinks that's the way to...
and in America, that's across the board.
Yeah. I think they were more affected there by such cases, so they became very, very aware and sensitive to these things. And here it's not too, Baruch Hashem, not too frequent. All distorted, yeah, all confused. That's one last thing I would say about the books. It's not so simple if whether we need to throw them out, because on one hand, it's not his messages so much. Most of his books, ילדים מספרים על עצמם, מבוגרים מספרים על עצמם, meaning he's just relaying stories that could be, but at least that, you're right. Now we can't even believe that, but at least that we were meant to. Oh yeah, I always thought that. Yeah, part was a moral message, but I always thought they kids sent him stories. Yeah, but on the other hand, I think to leave the books in the house gives recognition to the person, and then that's what's terrible. What's that? Yeah, I think I should get rid of them just because of that. Not to have his name in public anymore, not used by anyone, not to give him the fame. Even though his books are amazing, and I've never read them, but I know my kids have, and they're all over the place. 80 books he put out. He's a very prolific writer. And, all about education, all about, he was head, it's unbelievable, Merkaz Muganut in Bnei Brak. He was the head of Merkaz Muganut, the head of a protection center, and to protect the kids from these things. Yeah. Protect and to reach and to be able to do these things, because the kids came to him. Exactly. Married women, it's just unbelievable. Okay, so that's for that. So unfortunately, we have to, I think we'll stick with this as instead of our tefillah session. We have to just pray that our tefillah should be stronger and more meaningful, so that we're true people from within the heart. Yeah, they did. I don't know. I didn't hear. I didn't hear that come out.
I don't think anyone's publishing them.
I don't know.
At least for Chaim Kanievsky said no one should be selling the books.
Oh yeah, he said that.
It was funny. I was in
oh yeah, Oshara took them all out off the shelves.
Right. 1 week they were all outside on sale. It was kind of good. The next they were gone.
They're gone. Yeah.
I think from Chaim Kanievsky that said take them off.
Yeah, and he was fired from Eted Ne'eman a while when it was first came out. Yeah, in the beginning when it came out. So, yeah, it's a happier days, happier times. Yeah, 28 years old. Yeah, he had, I think, 7 children. No, they really. Also another. Yeah. Another very to pity is his family. After all, they didn't do anything wrong. His wife and kids. They didn't know anything that was going on. Yeah, right.
I don't know, because he's going for the people.
No, it didn't bother me.
Yeah, right. But but it has to be balanced. You can't just go to the shiva and not say anything about the victims. Right.
You understand, you want to comfort the family.
Right.
But he didn't come out
strong enough against the victim, for the victims, right? Right.
But it doesn't matter, even if you're going to the people who are alive, also say something about it.
Right. He did come out afterwards, but only because of his publicity came against him. Yeah. Yeah, right.
I'm walking past an outdoor minion. And they're saying Kedusha. I'm walking home, I'm on the street. What do you do?
That's interesting. So I'll just repeat the question for those on Zoom. Rivki's asking if you're walking by an outdoor minion and you hear Kedusha or Kaddish, what do? You're on the sidewalk. You have to stop and answer, or you just continue walking. Truthfully, you don't have to stop and answer, because if it's very obvious that you're not part of the minyan, you haven't joined that minyan. If you join the minyan, then you have to answer wherever you are. Except for one answer. Right. No, I understand. Yeah, you hear it from afar, sort of, right? It's not so far, but it's right. But I'm saying it's very obvious where you're standing, or walking that you're not part of the minyan. It's very obvious. People won't think, she's part of a minyan and she doesn't care about Kedusha. It doesn't seem so. It's very obvious. So
it happens to me, Rev Steinberg, all the time, and I stop and I answer because I walk up the block, Motzei Shabbat from Shul, and there's always a minyan.
Okay. So, Chaya, the surprise you're on Zoom today. Okay.
Amy got me scared.
Oh, yeah? Oh, wow. Okay. So Amy also is surprising. See you on Zoom. Okay. We still have a nice bunch here. That's why. Oh, wow. That's why I wrote still on the email. I wrote still in brackets. Yeah, right. Shrinking. Yeah. What can we do? That's a situation. So Chani was saying that every Motzei Shabbat she walks by an outdoor minyan and she stops to answer. I would say like this: it's nicer if you do, but it's not terrible if you don't. That's how I would put it. I'll give you an example where it comes up very, very frequently, and halachically the poskim decided this way. If you're in the kotel, especially in men's section, you're always hearing Kedusha. There's no chance that anywhere you are, you're not going to hear Kedusha because there's so many minions at not the same moment, different times, but they're all around in the same proximity. And so you'll be answering Kedusha every second. You can't daven. So the poskim say, if it's very obvious which minyan you're part of, you're standing around 10, 15, 20 men in a certain area crowding around, and then there's other minyan next to you, you do not have to answer all the other minyan. And even if you're not in the midst of davening, let's say you finished your minyan and now you're on your way out, and you hear Kedusha, you don't have to stop. Otherwise, you can't leave the kotel. Every second you have to answer another Kedusha going to the kotel. So that's the same idea. That's even closer to being in that situation, and yet you don't have to answer. But if you have the time and you're able to stop for a few seconds and answer, then you definitely gain another mitzvah. Definitely gain another mitzvah, but it's not a must. That's what the poskim say. By the way, Shlomo Zalman also says the same idea. If a person is obviously not part of the minyan because they're learning Torah now. Let's say you're sitting in the room next door to the shul and you're learning Torah. You don't have to stop learning and answer Kedusha. Even though you're just behind the wall, you're hearing it very distinctly. But since you're not part of the minyan and it's obvious that you're separate from them, so you don't have to stand and answer. All these situations are similar to that, so therefore it's okay. Wow. His arm over sleeve over his head. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Wow. So there's that that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's one of the advantages of outdoor minyanim, right? Right. You connect people who weren't connected. Right. Not to hear it, just run away. No, so next time you can keep on walking. Right. It's weird to continue walking, but you're allowed to. Yeah, right. That's a move. Yeah, I know. But it's somewhat a little bit their fault. Okay, now one more question on chat. Lisa is asking. One more question on the chat. When it's raining with thunder and lightning on and off all day, what are the rules for saying the brachos? So the rule is the following. The first time you hear and you're sure it's thunder, or you see and you're sure it's lightning, because sometimes it's just a plane that zooms by you and you're hearing a loud sound. You have to make sure it's thunder and lightning. Sometimes some posting say, wait for the second time you hear or see it, because then it's real. So then you say, Shikochog v'otom alei olam for thunder, oseh ma'aseh bereshit for lightning. It has to be said within toch kedei dibur, within a second and a half. The moment you heard it, or while it's thundering, or the lightning is even more complex, that you have to, the second you see it, within a second and a half, you have to say the bracha, otherwise you missed it. You get another chance next time it appears, but for that time you missed it. Now, as long as it's the same storm, which means as long as this doesn't mean that it's pouring and raining and thundering and lightning all day long consecutively, as long as the sky hasn't cleared up totally. If the sky hasn't cleared up totally during the day, it's still gray and raining once in a while, it's still the same storm. You don't have to repeat the bracha over again. Once for the entire day and evening. Meaning as long as you're awake, here it doesn't work like the Jewish calendar works, that when the Shkia or Tzeis appears and it's the next day. By this bracha, same as for Birkas HaTorah, for example. We say Birkas HaTorah in the morning. We don't repeat the bracha after Mariv if we want to learn more Torah in the evening. Those who have what's called Seder Erev in the Yeshivot, they have a night Seder. They don't start Seder Erev by saying Birkas HaTorah, even though it's a new day, because these brachos continue on until you go to sleep. They have the effect from the moment you said them in the daytime until you go to sleep at night. So the same as thunder and lightning, the moment you said the bracha once during that day and the sky hasn't cleared up totally from that storm that you that you said the bracha over, so you rely on that until you go to sleep. The moment you went to sleep, you wake up in the morning, even if it's the same storm still existing the whole night. It's the same storm the whole night since you slept. That's hesech hadat. That cuts you away from the bracha of yesterday. You have to say a new bracha the next morning. But then again, if the sky hasn't cleared up during the entire day, you rely on that same bracha all day long. Only if the sky cleared up and then it starts again becoming stormy, then you say the bracha a second time during the day, during that day. But if you don't know, you didn't check the sky and see what's. I think you would assume, especially in Israel, I understand in Europe, it becomes sometimes like pouring rain and suddenly it clears up totally and then rains again in the afternoon. In Europe, it can happen. In Israel, it's not so common. When there's a storm, there's a storm. When it clears up, it doesn't rain for a few days. It's sort of, in Israel, it's less questionable. Understanding. Yeah. That was a strong one. Right. That's because you want to make sure it's light. Sometimes you see these flashes in the sky. Really, it's just to be sure. Yeah, there's no difference in the sequence. You say the bracha without hearing thunder. Yes. Exactly. It's not, the sequence doesn't matter. Once you're sure, you can say the lightning first. Yeah. Okay. So now let's continue with our brachos class. Last week, we did situations where there's a combination of foods that together make up a kazait. You've had kazait together, 2 foods, 3 foods together. So the question is, for bracha achrona, which bracha achrona do you say? If they're all the same bracha achrona, they all deserve ala michya, they all deserve b'rei nefashos, then it's easy. Even if you had half a kazait of a certain fruit and half a kazait of tuna fish together, so that makes up b'rei nefashos. So you say b'rei nefashos. That's not an issue. Within 4 minutes, and have kazait, that's no problem. But the question is, if you have half a kazait of tuna fish with half a kazait of a cracker, this is a snack, half a cracker and a little bit of tuna on it, together making up a kazait, but each one separately is less than a kazait, and you ate it within 4 minutes, what bracha achrona do you make now? The tuna deserves b'rei nefashos, the cracker deserves ala michya, but none of them were kazait. So we said the opinion of Ravadi Yosef, Yeah.
Matter what bracha, did you make a separate bracha on each?
Sure,
Yes.
sure. Bracha Rishona, you must make a separate one on each one separate. Right, it's not a spread. You're eating them as two separate foods, right? Let's say you're having the tuna with the fork and you're having a cracker besides it. Yeah. So two separate bracha rishonas, and yet what bracha achrona do you say in that case? So Rav Ovadia Yosef, based on Rabbi Kiva Eger, actually, which is an Ashkenazic posting, but Rav Ovadia Yosef felt that was the right direction. He felt you don't say any bracha achrona. Since you don't have a kazait of this nor of that, so there's no bracha achrona. You can't bless Hashem for the after eating because you haven't had enough of each one separate. Majority of other poskim, mainly Ashkenazic poskim, differ with Rav Ovadia Yosef and argue that you must thank Hashem because after all you had the amount that's important enough to require a bracha achrona, to require thanking Hashem for this amount, the kazait that you've enjoyed now. So they say, which bracha achrona should we use? The bracha achrona of the lower degree. It's the more common denominator of the brachos. So if you have Borei Nefashos versus Alam Michya, so you say Borei Nefashos. That's more inclusive. And if you have Alam Michya versus Birkas Hamazon, let's say you had half a kazayis of bread and half a kazayis of cake. Okay, so you've had you haven't had enough for Birkas Hamazon nor for Alam Michya. You say Alam Michya in that case because it's a lower bracha, more common denominator that includes more foods for Alam Michya than Birkas Hamazon. Birkas Hamazon is only bread, whereas Alam Michya is for many things: pasta, pitim, couscous, cakes, cookies, crackers, many types of foods are included in Alam Michya. So it's more inclusive than Birkas Hamazon. So you say that one, the lower one, to cover this situation of half-half. Okay, that we did last week. Now, we'll continue with another situation. We know that for drinking any type of drink, the shiur, the amount that's necessary for bracha achrona is not kazait, 27 cc volume of solid food. Rather, since it's a liquid, it's a revi'it, which is 81 cc. 81 cc, that's the amount of, I just thought of it right now, 27 times 3, right? That's 60, 81. Yep, that's exactly 3 times as much. I never thought of it that it's exact. 27 times 3 is 81. So it's 3 times as much for liquid than for a solid volume. Now, by the way, for a liquid, the volume and the weight is the exact same. You can measure the weight and you get the volume because water, any type of liquid like water, the gram and the cc are the same because it's condensed accurately to weight and volume to be the same. So Shira, you can confirm this, right? You don't need scientists for that. Anyhow, so if you weigh the liquid you're drinking, you weigh 81 gram, that's exactly equal to 81 cc. Approximately, the amount of a revi to measure now easily is half of a simple plastic disposable cup. Those very simple ones, you buy 100 at once. Take half of that, not half of the cup, because the bottom part is a little bit more narrow than the top part of the cup. It has to be half of the cup amount, the amount of water that goes, that fills up half of that cup. That's revi'it, approximately 81. That's how you can measure in your mind. If you drink a cup of water, you can measure how much it is by imagining how much that amount would fill up, how much of a disposable simple plastic cup would fill up by drinking the amount you drank. Now, within how much time do you need to drink the revit in order to have the say bracha achrona, which is most probably borei nefashos, except for wine and grape juice, which is ala gefen priya gefen, but all other beverages are borei nefashos, including 100% fresh squeezed fruit juice. It's also borei nefashos in the end. Doesn't matter which fruit, even pomegranate juice. It's not ala etz or priya etz. In the end, it's borei nefashos. Because you only say shehakol in the beginning. You don't say borei priya etz for fruit juices, even 100% squeezed. So how much time do you have for drinking that amount of a half a disposable cup? How much time do you need to drink it? Within 3 gulps, without stopping. Gulp it down in 3 gulps. That's the amount of time, which is like 2 seconds. If you drink it within 2 seconds, then it deserves bracha achrona. If you sip it slowly, sip by sip, you're drinking your water, no bracha achrona, even if you finish a whole bottle. You finish a whole bottle. But if you sipped the amount slowly, and you didn't have it once, 81 cc within 2-3 seconds, no bracha achrona. That's why you see many times the what? The solid is 4 minutes, correct. Solid is 4 minutes for 27 cc, which is what we discussed 2 times ago, that whole list of solids. How much does that amount to in Bamba and Bisli and this and that? So that's for solids, 4 minutes, and for drink 2 to 3 seconds, it gulp down that amount, which isn't difficult. You take half a disposable cup of water and drink it, you'll see it takes 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds to finish, and it's easy. But that's considered you had an important session of drinking. Otherwise, you sip slowly. So you haven't really drunken something important. It's like insignificant, right? This way, it's insignificant type of drinking. Now, another situation which is questionable. The poskim say that okay, sorry about that. Something got disconnected here. Okay, we're back. So I began saying that although we said that the final halachic decision is revit as minimum amount within 2-3 seconds to gulp it down is the minimum amount to say borei nefashos, there are some poskim, and it's written down in Mishnah Bura as well, quoted in the Mishnah Bura, that who say that even by drink, enough to have a kazait, which is 27, a third of the amount we said before, to have to say bracha achrona. Again, within a second or 2. But that's a major difference. That means you can have a third of a half of a disposable cup, which is nothing. It's really just wetting the bottom of your cup and you're done. You've had already enough to say bracha achrona. So the Mishnah Bura in the end says that between a kazait and a revit, that's the questionable zone, that's the suffix zone, you should try not to enter that zone. Try not to drink within 2-3 seconds that amount of between 27 cc and 81 cc. Try not to be there. Either drink less than 27. Each sip, if you just take a sip, that's less than 27. And then you wait 4 seconds, take another sip. Then by doing that, and you're sipping slowly, no question, you don't need bracha achrona, even if you finish a whole bottle. On the other hand, if you had half a disposable cup at once in 2-3 seconds, then the rest you can sip slowly. As long as you had one amount like that requires bracha achrona, doesn't matter how long then your intervals between each sip are. You've had already the amount that requires bracha achrona, and everything else is included. It's only that case where you've had more than 27, less than 81, within 2-3 seconds. That's the questionable zone. So, in doubt, yes, water is the same as the beverage. And in doubt, leave out. So if you're in such a case where you drank less than, it can happen to people by kiddush. By kiddush, some people have a little bit of wine, grape juice, not that much, but it's not a teeny amount like 27 cc. Something in between. They don't have a full revis, but they have more than 27. And if they're not washing and benching because they're having kiddush in the morning only with some mizonos, so they're into this questionable zone of where they're having to say ala gefer or priya gefer nubat sadeh as a bracha achrona. So obviously you need to have mizonos because otherwise it's not kiddush. And kiddush elam becomes suda. So you need to have mizonos 27 within 4 minutes of solid mizonos in order for that to be considered kiddush. But that's just ala micha v'ala kalkala. That's not ala gefer priya gefen. So in this case, specifically, because you're anyway saying ala michya, which is bracha mein shalosh, similar to ala etzer priya etzer or ala gefen priya gefen. All three have a similar structure to them, except for the beginning and end. So if you're anyway saying ala michya, you are allowed and you should include ala gefen or priya gefen, even though for the wine or grape juice, you're in the questionable zone. And had it been alone, just drinking alone that amount, you would not have to say, you should not say bracha achrona. Because when in doubt, leave out. We said by brachos, safek brachos lehakel, we don't say a bracha if we're not sure we should. But if we're anyway saying ala michya, because of the cake that we had, which is definitely the amount that requires ala michya, then we can add ala gefen priya gefen within that bracha because it's not making a separate bracha only for that. The one who makes kiddush, yes, but the one who listened to kiddush, not necessarily. They can have just a little bit. They don't have to have anything, but it says mitzayna muvchar that they do drink, but there's no certain specific amount. Oh, that's what Sarah was saying. You don't have to. That's Siman Reisha in Aleph Sif Yudalid. The Shulchan Aruch discusses this. 271, letter 14. He says, mitzvah min what's that? And how many times I've gone over it? When you go over something so many times. No. It's far from being it's far from being some people have this photographic memory. I'm far from there. They're really amazing. And they can see everything once. They read everything once, and they have everything in their head. All memorized. That was our Avad Yosef. He had a photographic memory. You just say everything once, and you know exactly where it's siman, which letter, which page, everything is. That's really awesome. Anyhow, so the Shulchan Aruch there says, mitzvah min hamuvchar shitamu kulam. Mitzvah muvchar is like higher than lechatchila. It's not necessary, but if they do so, it's better. It makes it better. So if they drink a little bit, what's that? Because Friday night, you're anyway going to bench. And you're saying Birkas Hamazon over everything you had during the wine. No difference. It's the exact same. You should be drinking, those who listen or listening to Kiddush should be drinking or not in the same. Right. Ideally, how to pour it out from your cup to everyone else's cup. We did the whole way of how to do it, but it's both for Friday night and Shabbos morning. The only slight difference is that the Kiddush Friday night is the Oraita, and the Kiddush Shabbos morning is the Rabbanon. So you could say that if it's only mitzvah uvcha for everyone else to taste from the wine, then on a Doraita you want to do the best you can, and on a Rabbanon you don't do your best. So you could say that makes a difference, but it's not real, because even the Rabbanon we want to do our best. So better to drink from the wine even in the morning. Everyone who had listened and was yotze from Kiddush. If you had made Kiddush before and you hear another Kiddush, and definitely you don't have to drink from the second Kiddush. It's a Kiddush that you want to be yotze from, is the Kiddush you have to drink. You should drink from it to make it. Okay, I just want to add one more point to this. Two more actually, very quickly. Two more points very quickly. One is, if you're having a hot drink, like coffee or tea, would you say alam broi nefashos in the end? You drank a whole cup of coffee, a whole cup of tea, but you sipped it slowly because you can't drink it 81 cc within 2-3 seconds. You'll burn your intestines. Exactly. So the poskim say that Tova just said now, sip it slowly when it's hot, when it's boiling hot, until you reach the last 81 cc, the last maybe third of a normal jug, normal mug. Last third, let it cool off. And when it's quite cool, then you sip it within 2-3 seconds, the entire 81 cc. That's one way to do it. And then you do say brei nefashos. The problem in this case is, why not just say, okay, let's sip the whole thing slowly, and we won't say brei nefashos. What's the issue here? The issue is, some poskim hold that since that's the normal way to drink coffee and tea, so it becomes a significant drink, even though you've sipped it slowly. That's the problem. Because they say, if you're drinking just water or juice or wine or grape juice, then it's not normal to drink it sip by sip slowly. So if you do that, for wine, women don't gulp wine. For mashke, you're definitely right. For mashke, for yash, for schnapps, whatever word you want to use, whiskey. I never a third of a cup together. I gulp it down very easily. Wine. Oh, now a straw. Exactly. A straw is a very sure case of not having to say bracha achrona. Because with a straw, you can't get out the amount of half a disposable cup within 2-3 seconds. It just doesn't come out. Unless it's a very thick straw. Right. The shakes come with the straw because you sip them slowly. But I don't know if that's categorically right, because some... shakes also might have... Right, and the bracha is eight altogether. You said if there are chunks of fruit, then it's eight altogether. The whole drink is eight. Right. But I'm saying, that by the way, you're laughing. That's the solution which Shlomo Zalman gives for coffee and tea also. He says, since there's a dispute whether coffee and tea deserve bracha achrona, even if you just sip them slowly all the way, you don't leave the last third to cool off and drink it at once. You sip the whole thing slowly. Some poskim say you still need to say bracha achrona because that's a normal way of drinking it. But most poskim say no, because it has to be within 2-3 seconds, the 81 cc. It says of Shlomo Zalman, always have a cup of water with your tea or coffee, and at least a third of a cup, and drink it, sip it down within 2-3 seconds, and you're sure you have to say bracha achrona. Or any food that requires brei nefashos. It'd be a salad. Have a fruit, have some tuna with your coffee and tea, and then you can definitely say brei nefashos. If you had 27 cc within 4 minutes, it doesn't matter for what reason you say brei nefashos, as long as you say brei nefashos. Cover the coffee and tea you had. There's a famous story, which is almost like a joke. There was Shlomo Zalman once, he had a routine of coming home to Shari Chesed from the yeshiva at Beit Vagan. He was in yeshiva Kol Torah. He came obviously by bus. Never had a car, he never had a driver, always by bus. That was Shlomo Zalman. So he got off a certain bus stop, and then he walked from the bus stop to his home in Shai Chesed. He had to go through Keren Kayemet Street, everyone is familiar with the neighborhood. In Keren Kayemet, there are some Batei Cafe, some like restaurants, so you sit outdoors and spend time there. So as he was walking down the street, he observed that people had their coffee or tea with cake or whatever they were drinking, and they had a cup of water next to it. So he once expressed to his Talmidim, wow, look at Am Yisrael, it's so righteous. Now these were total chilonim. Look how righteous they are. They know that in order to say bracha achrona over coffee and tea, you need to have a cup of water. Turns out, back in the day, they used to serve every coffee and tea with a cup of water for dipping your teaspoon into the water, cleaning it in order to use it for your cake. So it always was served with a cup of water in order to clean your teaspoon. That was the purpose of the cup of water. But he was sure it's meant to solve the bracha issue. Yeah, he was very innocent, tamim person. Anyhow, so just to finish off, so the coffee and tea, either wait till the last third cools off and drink it at once, or have a cup of water or any food that deserves bari nefashos in order to solve the sipping issue, even though it's just sipping, but it's hot, so you can't do it otherwise. Same is, by the way, for a very cold drink. If it's extremely cold, you can't sip it down quickly. You also have to do it slowly. So it's the same issue as coffee and tea. That, again, becomes the normal way to drink it. And if so, maybe it deserves bracha achrona, even though you didn't have 81 within 3 seconds. So better have something besides it in order to cover the bari nefashos situation. Very cold or very hot is the same difference. And last point, very, very last point. Sorry, I'm taking more time than we're supposed to. Last point. How about combination of a solid and a liquid beverage, drinking and eating, each one less than the amount that requires bracha achrona for that thing, for that item. Let's say you're having half a kazait of a solid food and half a revis of a drink. Combine the two together, you're having now either the amount of a full revis of a drink or a full kazait for the food. One covers the other. Do they connect to each other? Do we connect the two? And then we say a bracha achrona. Of the lower level, like we said before for two solids, we take the lower level of bracha achrona. Do we do the same by drinking and eating? So the answer is no. Drinking and eating do not connect together. So if you have less than a kazait of a solid, less than a revis of a drink, you don't say bracha achrona on them at all. You don't need to cover it by anything else. You just didn't have the amount that's necessary bracha achrona. You know, together, combination of both together would have brought you to the one of the two amounts. They don't get combined together unless the liquid you had, the beverage, got soaked into the solid. For example, if you take a biscuit and you dip it in your tea, or your coffee, and eat it that way, then the amount, although it's a minute amount, it's a tiny amount, but the amount of coffee or tea that went into the biscuit, got absorbed in the biscuit, does count as part of the kazait of the solid to amount to a kazait within 4 minutes. Because that got absorbed into, so it's part of the solid now. But that's a tiny amount, so, and then we need to say ala michya, correct. If you have the volume of 27 cc only together with that little bit of liquid that got absorbed into the biscuit, it's a very rare situation. Exactly that's going to be the amount to make it or break it. You didn't have enough of the biscuit itself, only combined with a little tea or coffee that got absorbed in, only then it makes it kazait. Then you would have to say ala michya, and we do connect it because it's absorbed in. But if it's separate, one from the other, or even covering one on top of the other, but not absorbed in, we don't consider them as connected, and each one separately needs to be of the amount that requires bracha. Okay, that's it for today. Shinshap Salot Tavot, as we began this year, Chodesh Shvat, should be a good month for everyone. Zat Hashem, Chodesh Tov, Shavua Tov.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye. Very welcome. Call to